The Congressional Budget Office has just released its preliminary analysis of the Graham-Cassidy bill, which it says would reduce the number of insured Americans by millions. A few minutes later, Elaine, a fourth Senate Republican, Susan Collins of Maine, announced that she is a no, which means that without major changes to this bill, there is no way that it can pass.
So what does that mean then for the future of health care reform?
Well, it's very difficult at this point to envision a scenario whereby Republican leaders could get the numbers that they need to pass this version of the Graham-Cassidy bill, or really any version, by the end of the week, which is the deadline if they want to pass a health care plan with a simple majority vote. And so what you're looking at is a debate that is going to kick in among Republicans now about whether they should try again in the next fiscal year. And the reason that that is a difficult decision is because in order to pass something with a simple majority, you sort of need to set it up through the budget process. That gives you that window to pass something with just 50 votes instead of 60. The problem is that they were trying to pass tax reform this fall with 50 votes rather than 60, and they're working on a budget that would enable them to do that. It's very difficult to try to do both at the same time. And clearly, just beyond the numbers game, it's a big distraction. Tax reform is going to be difficult enough in and of itself, even if it has everyone's undivided attention. So the Republican leadership hasn't declared this bill dead yet. We're still waiting to hear whether they'll go ahead with a vote in the middle of this week or not. It's likely that the Republican leader, Mitch McConnell, wants to talk it over when he sits down with Senate Republicans for lunch on Tuesday. But, you know, it's hard to see him having an appetite to hold yet another vote that he knows is going to fail and that puts his moderate Republicans in a particularly difficult position.
Well, a CBS News poll, Nancy, found only 20% of Americans support the Graham-Cassidy plan. On Monday afternoon, the bill's only hearing was delayed by protest. How did all of that impact the chances of the bill passing?
Well, I think Republicans have known for quite some time that the Graham-Cassidy bill and its forebears, because remember, this is Plan D or Plan E at this point. Right. They've cycled through so many of them. They've all been pretty unpopular. And many Republicans have frankly gotten pretty comfortable with that. You know, they're well aware that anytime you're trying to shrink the government's role in a particular sector and you're trying to take money out of that sector, there's going to be a lot of people who are upset by that. Democrats would argue that this entrenched opposition to the bill is about more than that. It's about the fact that this has been a haphazard process that hasn't gotten buy-in from really any of the major stakeholders, from insurers to hospital groups to patient advocacy groups, and certainly to Democrats themselves. So, you know, there's a variety of factors that go into that very, very low approval rating, but it certainly doesn't help, and obviously it didn't help when you saw those pictures outside that hearing room of protesters, both disabled and otherwise, who had actually lined up 7 hours before the hearing to try to get in.
Nancy, you mentioned a moment ago the issue of tax reform. Looking ahead to Wednesday, the president is expected to unveil specifics of his tax plan. Do we know what to expect from that and what the chances are of it passing?
Well, what we'll be watching for, Elaine, is, first of all, that corporate tax rate. The president has been pushing for a 15% tax rate. A lot of Republicans here on Capitol Hill believe that that's kind of unrealistic. The White House has signaled that the president's willing to play along and that there's some wiggle room there. You know, look, tax reform is something that has the support of virtually every Republican, but that doesn't make it a sure thing. Repealing Obamacare had the support, after all, of virtually every single Republican. The devil is in the details, and you are going to have many Republicans who, once this plan is crafted, will say, does it reduce income tax rates for individuals? Yes. Does it reduce income tax rates for corporations? Yes. Great. Sign me up. And then there will be other Republicans who are going to be looking to see whether all of those cuts are offset by, you know, loopholes being closed elsewhere. And that is what is always so difficult to do, because you've got entrenched special interests who will fight like mad to keep those deductions and loopholes. But you will hear from some Republicans who are going to be pretty upset if they feel that this is, just giving away tax cuts to everybody without some of the tough decisions that they feel need to be made at the same time.
All right, Nancy Cordes on Capitol Hill for us. Nancy, thank you.
You're welcome.